Hello, good evening. Welcome to our 6 p.m. workshop. If the two of you could introduce yourselves and then please proceed.
Sure. My name's Mary Ann Bruncheck. I'm the Public Works Director.
Justin Bisson, Paving Manager.
Great. So we're here tonight for a couple different topics. We got the first half hour of this workshop. And the first one is a new policy. For driveways in the city, there's no rules to how wide they can be, how many you can have in your property. The one piece that is checked is during the planning and code, there is a permit that is done for a driveway, but it only looks at site distance and setbacks from the property lines. It doesn't look at the other pieces that I'll, go on to tell you why that it's important. So we developed a separate policy, but the permit is free. This isn't another way to put a permit in and to put a charge. It's really about conformity and trying to look at handicap accessibility, pedestrian safety, continuity, cost when we go to replace that sidewalk, and the roadways as well. So with most communities around us, they do have some sort of a driveway policy. We'd like to expand on ours, and we did work with David in code to make sure that we're still including what his is doing, but more. So we would replace the permit that was within the planning department, and it would become part of Public Works with a sign-off from both of us. So when we looked at the details of what other communities in the state have done for rules, we came up with some distances on how wide and how big we think a driveway could be and should be. So for a single-family home or a two-family home, it could be anywhere from 10 feet to 24 feet, depending if it's one or two driveways. For a commercial or a multifamily, we're recommending 20 to 36 feet. And so we've got lots of examples to show you because we think it's important for you to get a visual on that, but that's what we've kind of taken from the research that we've done, best practices, what we think is reasonable, the biggest truck and bus that's trying to get into a commercial property, making sure that we have enough safety and compliance with standards on how a road is built. But you'll see in these pictures, there's a lot of examples where it just has gone above and beyond, where either people have paved their own area in front of their house to park, or added a parking lot or a second side driveway into their lot. If it's not close to a corner, it's not a problem. But when you're in the urban area, it's a lot of problems when there's a lot of illegal driveways. And Justin's responsible for replacing all the sidewalks and doing all the paving work, so he sees all of this. So he's going to take a few minutes to just show you some examples. And then the policy, as we have written it up, there's some particulars in there. If you had any questions, we can answer that. But it's about more than pedestrian safety. There's a lot of other pieces to this. So once you look at some examples, we'll see if you have some questions in particular.
And it also helps with stormwater mitigation. It allows us to keep the curb line the way it is. And it also allows us to keep street trees when we have street trees, or put some in and not worry about having, driveways that shouldn't really be as wide as they are. These are pictures of driveways in the city, so if there's any of your houses, I apologize, don't get offended, or anybody you know.
Just looking for examples.
So we just have a couple different driveways from around here. This one is right on the corner. It's Pleasant Street and Weber Avenue. As you can see, there's two driveways right on the corner. Whether you're trying to turn in from either side, or turn onto the road from the driveway, it's a safety hazard. We're lucky that nobody has gotten hurt there yet, knock on wood, and hopefully we continue that way. But this is the stuff we want to try to avoid and keep everything safe for the motorists. This is a new subdivision that was just put in the last couple of years. It's a dead-end road. As you can see, we have a fire hydrant on one lane, and the other one goes right into a driveway. It becomes a problem when we're trying to plow snow. Where do we put the snow? You can't go to the left because you have an electrical box right there. You can't really go to the right because now you're going up on an incline trying to plow snow into the incline. This is going to become an issue for us when we take over the road completely. I think we just did, but that's a gravel driveway. In the right of way, we're responsible to fix that stuff. When the water keeps continuing going down the road and that's on a decline into that dead end, it's going to wash out that driveway. So that becomes an issue to us that should really not have been installed in that area. In the same subdivision on a different street, there's two streets in there. This is a hammerhead, which is supposed to be a turnaround for emergency vehicles or plow trucks or anything like that. You have three driveways coming off the hammerhead. And again, when we go to plow that, where do we put the snow? So it's something that should have been looked at, and unfortunately, we just don't have the way to kind of say, no, you can't put that in there at this point. So that's what we're kind of trying to get into. But that's problems that are just going to arise for us. The extremely large openings, both of these streets, the one on the right is actually Beacon Avenue, Beacon Street. We just went through and did that sidewalk. We didn't touch that part of it, so technically that is part of the sidewalk. It is not up to ADA standards. I can tell you that right now. It's more than a 2% slope. It is not up to ADA standards, because if we would have brought that down to a 2% slope, we'd have had to go back into the driveway probably 20 feet to get it to match in. And that just becomes a big cost for the city. The photo on the left is Elm Street. Elm Street is actually on the list to be done some point this year. And when we go through, it's going to become the question of what do we do? Do we close it up? It's a business there that has an apartment building. We looked at it, we feel we could close it up, but unless we have something to back us up, we're going to get resistance from the property owner. Going to ADA standards, both these photos are from streets that we just did sidewalks on in the last 2 or 3 years. You got Ware Street on the left, Shawmut Street on the right. It's an unapproved driveway. They're not long enough, so the cars hang out into the sidewalk. It's not ADA accessible. This is a potential lawsuit for the city, because if somebody in a wheelchair tries to get through and they go into the street and get into an accident or get hurt, it becomes the liability of the city is why couldn't they go straight through? So we have to be able to limit these streets, and we also need, on stuff like this, we need help from PD, that when they see it, they have to ticket them. It's a whole big open door that we don't want to continue to go in, because sooner or later it's going to get us in trouble. This is on Webster Street. Nobody ever got permission to do this. The curb was removed without any permission from Public Works. This is over 40 feet. I think it's actually 43 and a half. Most of our city streets, we don't have too many streets that are wider than 38 feet. So this is wider than our city streets. These are parking spaces along the road that were put in by the homeowners that technically now it's a standard. Now it's a sidewalk, so it has to meet ADA standards. Somebody parks in there, they're parking on the sidewalk. Again, we're in an ADA liability if somebody happens to get hurt. But we want to be able to limit this. And when we go through and take the sidewalks or remove sidewalks and put sidewalks in, we want to be able to at least get them up to ADA standards, or if we're not putting a sidewalk in, like the one on the right is actually Summer Street. The sidewalk technically ends right there. I think it's Whipple. So it extended. We could remove that sidewalk and not have to deal with that, and it could be a grassy area, but it was installed by the homeowner. This is on Webster Street. This is the funeral home. I think it's Albert and Burpee. We actually worked with the owners. They actually asked us to close it in for them, and we had the plan that we're going to anyways. So we worked with them to figure out where they wanted to close it in. They were happy. Everybody came out in the end with a positive attitude on it. But this is what we want to try to do when we do sidewalks. If we have these large openings, we want to try to work with the business owners or the homeowners or apartment building owners, and we want to come to an agreement on how wide we can keep it within our standard, and keep accessibility, flowing through. But we want to be able to limit our liability on having to fix driveway aprons, having to make sure that ADA is up to standard if it's not in a good place. I mean, it just helps us when we close stuff in.
That's the end of our pictures, but it does say a lot. You've all seen these examples around the city. There still is a clause in here for it could be, waived by the Public Works Director and, again, the Code Enforcement Officer with certain circumstances. We know we're going to have circumstances where maybe you need to do that, but they should be fewer than the common place that they are now. So again, the single family is still 10 to 24. The residential, and commercial, the apartment buildings is still 20 to 36. So that's still very generous. The fine system that we put up with this, if you put one in illegally, it was within the ballpark of the area that we saw was from like 105 to from 50 to 105. We put in a $150 fine and the ability to fix it and charge them the rate of fixing that.
And the fines do not start until day 15. So it's once we notify them, they have 14 days to get it within conformance. So we're not fining them right off at day one. We give them the 14 days. If they don't fix it, we'll look at fining them at 15 days, and after 30 days, we have the option to go in and remove and replace, and just charge the homeowner or the property owner for repair.
Excuse me. Questions?
Councillor Pease?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I got a couple, but I want to start off with apologizing to Director Banachek on the comment I made last week about those are pretty lousy pictures. After our tour, Public Works, and seeing firsthand with the vehicles on the lift and everything, you are up against a heck of a situation. And I want to commend everybody at Public Works for what they do. And I know they're short-staffed, and I probably jumped the gun a little bit on that,
Thank you.
but thank you. Now, the other question I have is, one of the slides you showed us, it looked like it was a dead-end street with a hydrant on the end. Is that a paper street, or is that a street that the city put in, or?
It was a subdivision that was put in just in the last 2 or 3 years. It's actually off of Deer Road. And it was approved by code, it was approved by the city. I believe we just took over the road completely, so it is a city street.
And so who's gonna pay to correct it? The developer should have been the one paying for it.
At this point, it's a city street, so I think we're responsible for it.
And I know there's some issues, and we'll talk on them sometime. All right, thank you.
Councillor McCarthy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if this gets all approved, is the city going to go around and checking everybody's driveway or looking for this? Or is this something that will be dealt with when roads are being rebuilt? Or, how is that exactly going to be handled? I know situations like the one with the car parked across the sidewalk is unacceptable, and that I can see doing away with, but I'm just wondering how in-depth we're going to get to correct all of the issues out there, or if it's just going to be on an as-need when we're redoing roads, or if there's a definite hazard that has to be corrected.
It would be the later, when we look at, our own personnel, and we're not trying to look for problems, we're trying to solve them. So mostly when we're putting in new sidewalks and opportunities where we're doing other pedestrian improvements, this has come up. But it gives us a consistency to fall back on a standard. So we won't go looking for them. And of course, working with the planning department, any complaints that they get repeatedly, we'll work with them.
Okay, so you go off, you won't be you'll be proactive on anything that you're addressing, but you won't be so proactive that you're going to be hunting down people to, okay.
The only time we'd really be going out is if we have a dig safe come in and it has a description of widening the driveway. We may go look at it, and we're usually proactive when we talk a lot with the contractors. If we see that, we may just call the contractor and say, hey, what are you looking at for a width? And explain to them that here's the standard, here's what you got to try to stay into, so we can kind of head it off before, because we don't want to get to the point where somebody pays money to put the driveway in, and then they got to pay money to narrow it up. I mean, that's not our intent here. We want to try to get to a standard, and we're going to work with trying to get all the contractors to understand what we're looking for and work with them. Other than that, it's a reconfiguration of a brand new driveway, and we'd like the ability when we go through and do sidewalks to be able to close some of them up, or at least work with people to come to a better width.
Another piece is educating the public that this permit is now,
Right.
if it's approved, that it's new. But doing some education about that, and repeatedly during the seasons that it's going to happen in the spring and throughout that summer construction season, is have that. It's free. This is for, a resource, and letting people know, because I don't think anybody would just happen to be reading up on that. So
Yeah,
I think
I-
education's a piece of that, and
Right.
we will do that with
I think
Angie.
that is very important to let the public know the reasoning behind it.
Right.
That there is logic behind it, and that there's, the safety issues and all of that, so that they don't think we're just finding something else
Right.
to attack. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Councillor LaChapelle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From some of the pictures, First of all, I'd like to know who in the planning department approved that subdevelopment. I know what I had to go through to get approval for a road. There's a fire hydrant at the end of the street. Who's the rocket scientist that decided to put a fire hydrant at the end of the street? That's all in design, and that's staff's fault. Frankly, it's our fault for somebody approving it. And then you get two houses that don't have the same, that don't have road frontage. Where's the road frontage? Is that supposed to be a cul-de-sac? What is that design? So I have a million questions on that one, and I understand the frustration from your end, and the guy plowing says, what am I supposed to do now? Totally understand, but that's a breakdown between the developer and staff and somebody not inspecting it. So it's shame on us on that one. That should have never gotten by. And I know how many times they come and inspect my developments. That should have never been approved. And in my opinion, yeah, that's a shame on the city, not on the developer. Well, yes, but shame on the city for allowing that to go through. And the other ones, like the cars parked in the driveway coming into the parking lot, that's 100% enforcement, and it's nothing to do with driveways. That's 100% enforcement. You can't block a sidewalk, period. You can't block a sidewalk. So that's with code enforcement, that's with the police department, that's a ticket. You can't block it. So I'm not in favor of being a police state all the time. And it's more rules, more this, more that. And I liked what you're saying, we want to work with the person, and it's like, let's see how we can make it work instead of you can't do this.
Right.
I hate that you can't do this mentality in the city of Lewiston when it comes to development. We have to be, like the guy that had two driveways. That driveway's been there for 50 years. So it's like, we're not going to knock on a door, you got to remove your driveway?
No,
Yeah, right.
Not our intent.
But we have to be nice, and the pictures that were shown to me were more of our fault than their fault. So a question would be, parking the car, we can go down Sabata Street right now, we can see people parking their cars in the front lawns right in front of it, and I swear the tires are on the sidewalk. It's that close. There's a couple of them that are right on the line. Is there parking requirements? What do you call a driveway? What do you call a parking lot? Is wherever you park your vehicle the driveway?
There is a line in the policy that states you can't park within the right of way. So it kind of, something like that, if you want to park on your lawn, but you're within the right of way, I mean, that's kind of where we're trying to head it. And it goes back to, are we going to go and, I mean, I know it's a police thing, but as Public Works, are we going to go to somebody if they're parking on their lawn, but they're not on the sidewalk? No, we're not going to say anything. You know, if somebody wants to put a driveway in right beside the sidewalk, are we going to say anything? No, we're not going to say anything. It's pretty much just making sure that you're staying off the sidewalk. We can get wheelchairs through. We want to keep that 5-foot sidewalk open for access. It's not, we're not trying to make this where we're just going out and getting everybody in trouble and fining them. We really do want to work with people. We want to be able to come to an agreement, and that's where the ability for her to kind of overrule and come up with a better solution, that's the good point, because it's not always going to be black and white.
Can they go to, can this be appealed to the Zoning Board of Appeals?
I don't know if there's an appeal section in here, is there?
I think it just comes down to you and code.
Code sign-offs. Do you feel like there should be an appeal?
Give,
We can add that.
just to give
We can add
everybody
that,
the
yeah.
ultimate ability to, because right now, you're sounding very reasonable, very fair, and somebody I'd like to work with. But in 10 years from now, when you're gone and she's gone and somebody else, and we get this little
Can add that.
individual that, a control freak that just pulls everything out, I just want to give our residents the opportunity to appeal something and say, common sense, folks, common sense.
Right.
So yes, I would like to add
can add that.
the Zoning Board of Appeals to that. And are we, the 50-foot driveway, 45-foot driveway, there's no permits. I never got a permit to put any of the driveways in, and even when we build the house, we never show the driveways. They have to be so many feet from a lot line. They can't be right on a lot line.
The example that we showed on Elm Street that we're paving this summer, we did some measurements and looked at it where you could close it in and just switch the parking to be the opposite direction in both ways. Oops, sorry. And they'd still get the same number of spots in. So when we address somebody, it's kind of looking for solutions too. We know that they're trying to create. So, I mean, that
I have a
there.
location that it's on a corner that the opening was 50 feet, but then they said, well, it's too wide because of one of my stores, and they put like a 10-foot side, just curbing. Guess how many tires get blown out on that 10-foot
In the
curbing?
middle?
It's unbelievable. So common sense should prevail. I like what you're saying, I like what you're doing. I would just hope that we can build in common sense in here to say, come on, we want to work with our citizens, and talking to them is the best bet. Thank you.
Councilor Clement?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I like what I've heard so far, particularly the part about working with people. I think if you go out and try to enforce this, you might run into constitutional issues, namely post-ex facto legislation. Yeah, my Latin leaves a bit to be desired tonight.
I mean, it's been there.
Yeah, it's, you can't pass something and go back on people and say, now you've got to conform to this. You might be inviting a legal fight there, but I agree that there are some problems out there. The sidewalk issue, definitely enforcement. I'm sure that we have an ordinance to that effect, and I'm sure there's a state law that says you can't block any public way or sidewalk. So those issues should be addressed in that fashion. But work with people, absolutely. I agree with the necessity for having conformity, and I like what I see here.
Great,
But
thank you.
common sense are the two words that I've heard several times over, and I think they're important. Thank you.
Councilor Jones, did you have something?
I think you answered it. I mean, you had talked earlier about the fact that there'd be some waivers, granted, and I suspect what you're talking about are properties like Councilor LaChapelle was talking about, properties that have been, like, I'll just use my own home. I bought my house 19 years ago. It has 2 driveways. One's a paved driveway, one's a rock driveway, and there's a lot of them in our neighborhood, actually. There's no sidewalks, but there's people built those, I suppose, I don't know, to store their campers or whatever. And I think that's the kind of thing that you're talking about. You're not going to go hunting after that sort of thing. It's more, or driveways that have been in existence for whatever you said. Yeah.
No,
But no, I
absolutely
think this makes good sense, and I think it's good.
Excellent, thank you.
I also agree with Councilor LaChapelle about the appeals board option. I think where it makes sense, we need to give citizens, residents, the ability to appeal a city's decision. So that way it doesn't come down to just one person and personalities.
Excellent, we'll add that.
Councilor Pease, did you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question on the funeral home, Burpee's Funeral Home. Are you closing off Webster Street completely?
No, that was already completed. That was an example of something that we worked with the business owner when we did the sidewalks 2 years ago. You can see where the pavement ends. The driveway actually came right down the whole way of the pavement, and we worked with them. They actually wanted to close it up. We kind of broached the idea. They were on board with it, and they were excited. So it was just an example of something that when we worked together with the business owner to make it within a reasonable amount of area that was open.
Yeah, because they have an exit on Pine Street, and if you go up behind the alley, you
The
can
alley
come out
behind
on Walnut Street. Is that a legal driveway for anybody?
That alley is actually a private alley.
It's a
That's not a
private-
city
Okay.
street.
I was just curious because I knew they had other ways out, and then when you said you were going to close it, I thought I heard you say you were
No,
closing
no,
it. All right.
that was already completed.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Scott, did you have something?
I do. So first off, my apologies. Apparently, I'm allergic to this place tonight. So I appreciate everything that's been said as well. I do think that we need an appeals part to this, but I also see where, there's a big difference between where Councilor Jelinas lives and Sunnyside neighborhood, honest to God. I mean, when we look at, I get phone calls on a regular basis from people that live on Davis and White Street because sidewalks are blocked, they can't see backing out in the wintertime. There's some serious issues. When we look at the Sunnyside neighborhood, there's some serious issues there where people, you can't even walk because so many people have actually paved their driveway around their building into the existing sidewalk, goes all the way down to the next house, and they've got their cars parked there and in their driveways. And if you're trying to walk there, you're now walking in the street, and kids are walking in the street to get to their bus stop. So I think that we have to play both sides of this. We have to give people the chance to understand why we're doing this, because we do have to be compliant with ADA. But I'm hoping that we have a good public process when this comes back to us, because this is just our workshop, so we'll see more. Thank you.
I would like to keep things moving here so we can get to Part B.
Thanks.
But any final thoughts from Councilor Clement? Did you have something?
Yes, just briefly, Mr. Mayor, I think the Board of Appeals is the way to go on this. Otherwise, I think they're open to going to court and get it done quicker and probably have a more consistent result with the Board of Appeals. That can be appealed to the Superior Court, I'm sure. As long as there's one or two lawyers out there, you can appeal about anything. But let's cut the process down and make it a little more finite. And I think it makes sense where it's a city issue to have the Board of Appeals hear it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, councilors. And yeah, let's
So
Part B.
Sure, the Part B of this is that the police details, and the way that we have it written in two different ordinances, is only a $100 fine. So we have a contractor working right now that has had 18 fines in, 3 days?
Since Wednesday at noontime.
Yeah, so it's repeat offenders, okay? So the first fine is the same as it has always been, but if it's a repeat offender, we've never had anything beyond that. So we added a $500 fine for a second offense, and then the possibility of a $2,500 fine if it continues. And then we added some streets that we think need police detail, like East Avenue, if you've seen some of the construction there. And we changed some streets to have the discretion of the police department if they needed a patrol there or not, depending on time of day, what the project is. And so the street and sidewalk occupancy policy and the excavation and street opening policy, there's one page that had changes on it. And that's what it entailed, updating that fine and also changing the streets by adding East Ave, and then changing 3 different streets that would then be Cedar, Canal, and Lincoln would be at the discretion of the police department. It's a very simple change, but it's going to help us with being able to enforce that, especially with some of the work that we have going on right now. So, any questions on that?
Councilor Herman.
Thank you. So which standards is this contractor violating repeatedly?
It's, they're not MUTCD approved closures. We have a lot of stuff that there's no signs at all. There's no cones coming up. We have, where they don't have a police detail on the major roads. We had this contractor last Saturday was working at 8 o'clock at night on the hill right across from Holy Family Church with no police officer, no signs, no nothing, right in the middle of the road. And of course it's dark at 8 o'clock. So it's consistent safety issues. MUTCD is a national standard, so it's not like we're making up our own rules. Everybody has to follow the same rules all over the nation. And we're just not seeing this, and we're consistently with this one contractor having an issue. Most of our contractors are very good. Again, it goes back to education. We go out and we talk with these guys. When we drive through and we see that they don't have any signs or cones up, we'll stop and say, hey, just put your signs up. Most of them have them on the truck. They just, for some reason or another, they don't put them out. So we're not out there to try to just, all right, you're getting a fine right here. We're trying to make everything safe for the motorists and the pedestrians that are coming through, and the workers. So we just need the ability to essentially kind of slap their hand a little harder if they want to continue to not follow the rules before somebody gets hurt.
Yep. Thank you.
Councilor LaChapelle.
Thank you. Does it have to be the police department? Can somebody hire a security company with a car with a light on? Do they have to hire the police department if they're working on a?
According to our ordinances, they do now.
Okay, so I'd like
which is
to-
typical in most cities. You know, these are just the main streets, it's not the side streets. I realize what they do and what they have to do, but the compliance, for people to see a police car as opposed to a, you know, what they're using for flaggers right now, those are actually companies that are hired out.
So when Public Works has a water break on Savannah Street, do they have a police cruiser sitting there?
If it's an emergency, not typically. If it's planned work, yes.
Right.
Our crews have to follow the same rules as every contractor.
Well, one of my complaints that I expressed to the director last year at some point was I felt like the double standard from the city of Lewiston not following the city of Lewiston rules on signage, on some of the other stuff. Now, I have had Public Works say, hey, Rick, you need to have some signs. And okay, we got some signs and we put them up. But then I drive down the street and I say, son of a gun, that's Public Works. Where are their signs? Where's their flagger? Where's this? And they're not there. So I'm just, optics. If we're gonna clamp down on somebody, by golly, we better be doing the same thing. We've got
I
to be
have
doing the same
this
thing.
argument all the time with our own crews.
Yeah,
Um,
and-
we've gotten a lot better. We're not where we need to be because my phrase to these guys is, we need to be better than everybody else.
Yeah, if we're gonna,
And-
they need to live to your standards, live to the city. If the city expects this to be done, the city should be doing this every time. And if we can't do it, I hope the people that call the guy for the sign and stuff like that is a little more understanding, and it's just that pleasant, hey, I know, we blew it the other day. Let's get out of that police state mentality.
Right.
Police state mentality drives me crazy. And if we're gonna be putting this stuff on, and we can't live to that standard, I'm not gonna vote for the standard, because we're not living up to it either. So I would like to see, just because the cost of a police cruiser, to have a cruiser there, it's gotta be $175 to $200 an hour, something to that
121.
effect.
I think it's 115 or 116, I think.
115 or
115 or 116 an hour right now. I think,
Okay.
for the officer and the cruiser.
officer.
And Brian might know more on,
Okay.
exactly what it is, but I believe it's somewhere in there.
And we have an in-house rate as well. That's a little less for our projects. So
Correct.
we did negotiate that with the police department and still bringing them to the projects when we need to.
Correct. I just have a problem with the double standard, and I don't have a problem with the policy itself, but if we can't live by the policy, how do we expect St. Laurent, Gendron, whoever, Crooker, or anybody else to come into town to live by that standard? Thank you.
Further comments from the council? Sorry, Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How long do they have to pay these fines? When you issue a fine, how long do they have to pay these fines?
We have some people with excavation policy fines that are over 2 years now. So I've asked the question on, at what point do we either go to small claims or what do we do? And right now, I haven't really got an answer, so.
I think that part of this should be that give them a reasonable amount of time and shut them down. They can't work in Lewiston until the fine's paid. I think that's totally ridiculous. It's flaunting the law. If 2 years, you have fines outstanding for 2 years.
This contractor that has not paid for 2 years, he knows that if we see him in the city, he's getting shut down right away. The excavation policy is spelled out very clearly on what we can do. The occupancy right now is very vague. It just says the $100 fine. So that's what we're trying to change is on the occupancy.
Yeah.
And the numbers are exactly what we pulled out of the excavation. You get a written warning for the excavation because, again, we're not trying to just, be the police state like Councilor LaChapelle is talking about. We're trying to educate. If you get caught again within a year, it's $500 fine. If you get caught for a second or a third time, really, because the first one's a written warning, third time within a year, it's $2,500, and you get your excavation policy permit revoked for the rest of the year.
And I would like to see some sort of time frame where they're shut down if they don't pay the fine within a reasonable amount of
And
time.
that's
30
with-
days, 60 days,
With the
whatever it
excavation
is.
policy,
but-
the minute you get one fine, you cannot work until that fine is paid.
Oh, that is the
Yep.
case. So the person with the two years, they don't do any work
They
in
do not do
Lewiston?
work in the city of Lewiston.
Okay, great. I like that idea. Thank you.
I will add, those
Yeah.
balances do follow our collection policy, so they do go through small claims and that process as well.
But I think being able to shut them down quickly, you know, even if they're not done the project, shut them down. Hey, sorry, pay the fine, or you don't continue, they can hire someone else to do it. So it's a little bit of being a hard ass, but I think you have to be at some point in time, especially someone like, what, you say 15 times, or what?
Repeat offenders.
Repeat
18 since
offenders?
we had a meeting with the company by Zoom on Wednesday, and it's 18 violations since
That-
Wednesday.
They shouldn't be working in Lewiston if they can't follow the rules. That's my feeling. Thank you.
Yes, I mean, I'm fine with increasing subsequent fines. I mean, the goal of fines is to bring people into compliance, and if businesses, see a fine as simply a cost of doing business, that's not what we need, so.
Right.
Further comments from the council? Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Administrator Hunter, I believe we're heading to executive session?
Yep, pursuant to MRSA Title I, Section 4056C, to discuss an economic development issue with premature disclosure of information will prejudice the competitive bargaining agreement of the position of the city. Sorry about that.
May I have Councillor Clement, followed by Councillor Pease. All in favor? We're heading to executive session, and we'll be back just as quickly as we can. Hello and welcome to our Lewiston City Council meeting. We're starting off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we will have high school, I think, Dean of Students, Deanna Earhart, and middle school Dean of Students, Deanna Earhart, and then Julian, who is a second grader at Connors. They will both lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we'll begin with Lewiston Leads. Councilor LaChapelle. Thank you, Deanna and Julian.
Mr. Dawson, you have you join me up to the front. It is my honor and privilege tonight to award lifelong Lewiston resident Jeff Gosselin with the Lewiston Leads Challenge coin. One look at Jeff's long resume shows that he could have lived anywhere in all of the United States, yet he chose to stay in his beloved hometown of Lewiston, Maine. Following graduation from St. Dom's, Jeff immediately pursued the education he needed to enter the chosen field of finance. Upon graduating from Thomas College in 1993 with an honors bachelor's degree of science in economics with a concentration in finance, Jeff continued his education, receiving a general banking degree from the New England School of Banking and then a master's degree in business administration from his alma mater, Thomas College, in 1999. In 2018, Jeff's exceptional success in the world of finance led him to receive a Wharton Leadership Program certificate through the American Banking Association's Stonier Graduate School of Banking. Having held numerous senior roles in financial institutions throughout his entire career and now serving as Chief Commercial Banker and Senior Vice President for Maine Community Bank, formerly Mechanic Savings Bank, Jeff is responsible for the bank's overall commercial lending and cash management development teams. While Jeff's resume shows a career path filled with professional success, excellence, and recognition, it is clear that what he does outside of work, giving back to the community, is equally important to him. Over the past 2 decades, Jeff has served in leadership roles on the boards of the YMCA, Central Maine Healthcare, Androscoggin Home Health and Hospice, the Lewiston Auburn Railroad Company, the Androscoggin County United Way, the American Heart Association, St. Dom's Academy, Pathways, the Maine Music Academy, Thomas College, and the March of Dimes. Jeff has always been an enthusiastic supporter of youth sports and has spent over a decade coaching youth hockey, soccer, and basketball for the children of Lewiston. And if that isn't enough, Jeff also finds time to serve the city of Lewiston, where he was a former chairman of the planning board and currently chairs the Board of Appeals. The time Jeff spends gives back to the community he calls home spans not only occasional hours, weeks, or months, but decades. How do you do it all, Jeff? While Jeff had early opportunities to go elsewhere to establish his career, he chose to deepen his roots in the place where he was born and raised. Jeff says that choosing to stay in Lewiston has provided him with the opportunity to build on his relationship here, and that he feels fortunate that he's been able to build this career on the foundations he has in his hometown of Lewiston. Congratulations, Jeff. Thanks, Doc. Thank you. Leads. Thank you. Lewiston Leads.
Yep, okay, thanks.
And now, Madam Clerk, I believe we're ready to begin.
Yes, the next, let's see, all roll call votes for this meeting will begin with the Councilor of Ward 5.
And we have acceptance of the minutes.
Yes, of the April 18th minutes.
May I have a motion, please?
So
We
moved.
accept them?
Counselor Giles, followed by Counselor Clement. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
I abstain.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6-0.
We are now up to public comment. Any member of the public comment may make comment. Any member of the public may make comments regarding issues pertaining to Lewiston City Government. This period is reserved for non-agenda items. Public comment is also allowed during individual agenda items. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Please state your name for the record and please indicate if you are a Lewiston resident. Because this is the business meeting of the City Council, all questions should be directed to the mayor, who will ask staff to follow up at a future time. It is illegal for the City Council to allow comments related to personnel matters. All personnel complaints should be made directly to the City Administration Office. Do we have public comment?
Good evening. I'm Matt Roy, 155 Wisdom Street, Ward 3. Mayor and councilors, today up in Augusta, the Education Committee had a public hearing for testimony on LD 1748. If passed, this bill would eliminate the current school budget validation referendum process and would require collection of signatures to force a referendum. To rationalize the threat of a referendum defeat, to advocating for a policy choice, i.e. minimum local share, is meaningless as state law provides a process until a new budget is approved. Not to mention holding a referendum after the fact is even more pointless. Also, to say eliminating accountability is a reform to a quote-unquote broken system is an astounding statement, to say the least. Regardless of one's one's voter registration status, eliminating the current school budget referendum process can only be seen as an affront to good stewardship and accountability of government by its citizens. Thank you.
Further public comment? Public comment is now closed. Madam Clerk, I believe we're up to our consent agenda.
Sure, there are...
And please note that we are pulling out item number 4.
Yes, so it has been requested to remove item number 4 from the consent agenda. So the motion before you will be to approve the consent agenda, which consists of now 4 items. Item number 1, order authorizing execution of municipal quitclaim deeds for real estate located at 91 Wood Street. Number 2, authorization to accept transfer of forfeiture funds. Number 3, to approve the resolve to authorize the City of Lewiston to join the AARP Age-Friendly Network. And number 5, resolve authorizing the use of $1,500 from the Farrar Fund for costs of basic necessary services for needy individuals.
So moved.
Councilor Pease, followed by Councilor Jelinas. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councilor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Madam Clerk, agenda item number 4.
Item number 4, amendment to the LA Airports Interlocal Agreement, Article 3, regarding the Board of Directors governance structure. Requested action to approve an amendment to the LA Airports Interlocal Agreement, Article 3, regarding the Board of Directors governance structure, subject to the City of Auburn approving this same change and only this change to the agreement.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Councilor Pease, followed by
Second.
Councilor LaChapelle. Discussion, Councilor Scott.
I'd like to make a motion to table this to our next regular agenda item, please.
Second the motion.
We have motion to table and a second on the floor. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 6? I'm sorry, Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Agenda item number 6.
Item number 6, public hearing and adoption of order approving outdoor entertainment event permits for various summer community events beginning in May and June. Requested action to conduct a public hearing on applications for outdoor entertainment event permits, and to adopt the order approving the outdoor entertainment event permits for various summer community events beginning in May and June.
So move.
Councilor.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Harriman, second by Councilor Pease. Discussion. Councilor McCarthy.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As much as I like seeing everything that's on this list, I wish the list was longer. I think that that needs to be the goal. I think we need to have more outdoor entertainment and more draw to our city, and I'm all for supporting this. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I will add, just
Administrator
to
Hunter.
follow up on that, this is for the events starting in May and June. You're going to get another agenda item at the next meeting for the remainder of the summer.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Administrator Hunter. Councilor Pease, did you have something?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the director for giving us this. This gives us a list. Are we going to get extra copies of these that we can hand out?
Yes, we can make some available to you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Jalanis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a question. I just, as I was looking through these, I'm just really pleased with the diversity of these events. It's just wonderful to see so many applications like this coming forward, so just really pleased to see them.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you. I would concur 100%, and just to point out to the audience and the members at home, what Councilor Pease had pointed out is something that we received tonight from our city administrator, which says all the dates and all the different activities that are happening in our community throughout the year. Actually, it goes to even December 16th, which is Sparkle Saturday. And are we going to have these available for the public at maybe a
They
certain
will be
spot?
available at the treasurer's office as well as city clerk. And I have to give credit where credit's due. Angie, our marketing director and communications director, is the brainchild of the format this year.
Thank you. I mean, not only does it list all the activities that we have going on in the community, but on the backside, it lists museums, historical centers that we have in the community, as well as nature parks, playgrounds, attractions, breweries. We got it all. Let's promote Lewiston. Everybody get one. Thank you.
Those at home can go to lewistonmaine.gov/calendar and look at it right now. Further discussion? Public comment on this agenda item? Back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you. And thank you, Director Morris. Agenda item number 7.
Item number 7, public hearing and first passage for an amendment to the Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances, Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 2, Definitions. Requested action, that the proposed amendment to Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances, Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 2, Definitions, receive first passage by a roll call vote, and that the public hearing on said ordinance amendments be continued to the next regularly scheduled city council meeting.
May I have a motion, please? Councilor Pease?
Second.
Second by Councilor Harriman. Director Hardiger, please kick us off.
All right, I'm back. Keep on having amendments here. I think we're going to give you folks a little bit of a break in the next month or two, but we're picking away at the baskets here. So the first article you have, or item you have before you tonight, is the definition section. The section's pretty straightforward, made just some clarification changes with respect to the definition of farm housing, and then you'll see we deleted the whole home occupation definition. We'll be talking about that when we get to an amendment to Article 12. We feel that that's a better spot to put some performance standards. We've added a new use called neighborhood restaurant. Neighborhood restaurant would be something that's allowed to be up to 2,500 square feet in size. You'll see when we get to Article 11 that we're proposing that for 2 different zoning districts, in addition to the zoning districts that we currently allow neighborhood retail in. The planning board voted 6-1 on this. There was some discussion about the size of the neighborhood restaurant. Initially, we had it at 1,500 square feet, but the majority of the board was interested in bumping it up to 2,500 square feet. That's all I have on this item.
Discussion from the council. Councilor Scott.
Thank you. So First off, I want to thank the planning board for a great discussion on all of these different changes. This was a really good discussion, and I'm excited about the fact that we may open this up to other areas in the community where we can have a small restaurant. I think about community space and community neighborhoods and how this can really advance that in our city. So I really appreciate this coming forward. Thank you.
If anyone, if any future restaurateurs are listening, I would love a vegetarian restaurant in my neighborhood. So. Further discussion from the council? Public comment for this agenda item? Back to the council. Anything that you'd like to add, Director Hediger?
Not on this item.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Word 7?
Yes.
Word 1?
Yes.
Word 2?
Yes.
Word 3?
Yes.
Word 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 8.
Item number 8, public hearing and first passage for an amendment to the Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances, Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 3, Official Map. Requested action that the proposed amendment to Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances, Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 3, Official Map, as shown on proposed map, receive first passage by a roll call vote, and that the public hearing on said ordinance amendments be continued to the next regularly scheduled city council meeting.
May I have a
So
motion,
moved.
please? Councilor LaChapelle, seconded by Councilor Clement. Director Hediger.
Sure. You folks may remember this was initiated by the council on April 4th to rezone this property. I can pull it up on the screen if you folks would like to look at it. This property is split zoned between 3 different zoning districts: low-density residential, office residential, and urban enterprise. It appears that was done back in 1988. Prior to that, it was primarily zoned residential with a few little nuances. I don't know why it was split zoned the way it is, but it certainly makes it challenging to develop. The city has since tax acquired this property, and we are trying to figure out what the best uses of this would be, and we believe it would be residential. So rather than having 3 different zoning districts there, we recommended that the entire property be zoned office residential. Office residential does allow other non-residential uses, and you'll see in your packet tonight that we're also proposing to change the name of office residential to neighborhood business. So OR will not be a term being used going forward should the council approve another change this evening. But the primary reason we chose office residential is it allows the broadest range of residential uses. It allows single-family, 2-family, attached, multi. We feel that if we market this or put out an RFP, and that still is going to be decided if we actually list it or do an RFP, we'll get the greatest variety of uses potentially from applicants looking to develop the lot out there. I've also included in there, just for comparison, the space and bulk chart, as well as the uses, so the council knows what the 3 zoning districts are that exist out there and what we're changing it to. And you'll note when you look at that matrix, you'll see that the office residential is actually crossed off in its neighborhood business. Again, that's a name change that we're proposing in a future action you'll take here.
Thank you, Director.
Just answered it.
Okay. Discussion from the council? Councilor Pease.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. As I was going through the list, I noticed that mobile homes and individual lots are not allowed.
I'm sorry, Councilor, mobile homes?
Mobile homes on the residential section,
Yep,
mobile homes and on individual residential lots are not allowed.
correct. Are not allowed.
So that would not allow them to put a mobile home park there.
That's correct.
Thank you.
It's probably worth noting, too, we did have some neighbors show up with some concerns about the potential development that can occur on this lot out there. Understandably so, it's a large vacant lot. It was a farm at one time out there. We did reiterate that should the rezoning occur, should development occur out there, everybody within 300 feet would be notified of any hearings before the planning board, and subjects like traffic, stormwater, things of that nature, that would be addressed at that time.
We're heading to public comment for this agenda item. And back to the council. Director Hediger, anything else? I know you just spoke, but.
We're good.
All right. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda number 9.
Item number 9, public hearing and first passage for an amendment to the Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 11, District Regulations. Requested action, that the proposed amendment to Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 11, District Regulations, receive first passage by a roll call vote, and that the public hearing on said ordinance amendments be continued to the next regularly scheduled city council meeting.
May I have a motion, please? Counselor
Second.
Pease, second by Counselor Harriman. Director Hediger.
Great. So as I just mentioned, office residential is no longer proposed to be office residential. It would be neighborhood business. With that, we provided a revised purpose statement of the OR, now NB zoning district. We felt that was consistent with the types of uses that are already allowed in what was the office residential district, as well as what the comprehensive plan talks about for doing more residential uses and some limited non-residential uses there. So that's one change that you'll see here that's crossed out on the matrix. Hopefully you folks got a bigger copy. I see one counselor has a big copy, so that's a good thing. To just touch upon some of the changes that are in there. So the office residential is no longer that. It'll be neighborhood conservation, neighborhood business. You'll see that we added neighborhood restaurant as a use. That's something you folks just approved in Article 2. We've added that to 2 zoning districts, both the neighborhood conservation B and the neighborhood business district. Neighborhood conservation B we chose because we already allow neighborhood retail there, so we thought it was appropriate if you can do neighborhood retail, you can do a neighborhood restaurant. I'll note that neighborhood retail is limited in size as well, so you can't have a big box being thrown into the middle of a multifamily zoning district. So there's some thought and effort as to how these non-residential uses will try to fit into these zoning districts without creating too much of an adverse impact. The other changes we made there, farm housing, I mean, it's more, some of the stuff is almost more, not typos, but just cleanup on our part, housekeeping. We cleared up where you can do agricultural or farm housing. It was a little bit confusing when you looked at our space and bulk standard. Farm housing is allowed accessory to an agricultural use. You can't just have farm housing. Farm housing has to be accessory to something that's accessory to agriculture. So we just clarified that in the use table. And we did make a change with respect to the density allowed in the neighborhood business district, which was formerly the office residential district. You'll see that we've dropped the lot sizes down. If you're on public sewer, originally a multifamily, you had to have 20,000 square feet of lot area. We went down to 12,500. And then we have a net lot area. That's the number of units you can put on the lot per square footage. We went from 3,000 to 2,000. We did do some work just to make sure those numbers weren't totally out of whack. You may remember we hired Doug Green as a consultant several months ago to do some additional planning work for us, and one of the exercises we had him go through was look at all the properties in the office residential and just figure out an average as to what the lot sizes and the density were in those zones. And making these changes, it's pretty much brings it in line with what already exists for development in that ORNB zoning district there. So I think that's going to be a good change, not only to bring properties into conformance that may have been non-conforming, but will also allow some additional development to occur. I think that's about it for Article 11.
Discussion from the council. Public comment on this agenda item. Oh, yes, please head to the podium.
Mr. Mayor, my name's Gloria Perot. I've been a resident of Lewiston all my life. On the proposal for the old Lisbon Road, we have a definite race zone over there right now. We have accidents. We have cars that go by so fast that we can't even go across the street to get our mail. And for younger families to move in that area, there would have to be no exit or entrance on the old Lisbon Road. That would have to be done on Lisbon Road. And, because little kids can't play out there. There's just no way, even old people can't go out there. So I would just like the council to know that any type of housing would have to be addressed as far as entrance and exits to that street. Thank you.
Further public comment? And back to the council. Councilor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just so it's noted, anybody that purchased that land or wants to develop that land has to go in front of the planning board. Everybody gets a notification of it and has time to speak on it, have one way or the other on it. Usually done way ahead of time. As far as speed, I agree 100%. That road is crazy. I've traveled it many times, and I have pulled over. And I'm not a slow driver, but I've had to pull over because somebody was zipping by me. So I'm going to talk to the chief, see if or some public works, see if we can get a lower speed there put in. Thank you.
I believe the chief is in the audience, and I'm sure it's been duly noted. Further discussion from the council? Anything you'd like to add, Director Hediger?
Not this time.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Agenda item number 10.
Item number 10, public hearing and first passage for an amendment to the Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances, Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 12, Performance Standards. Requested action, that the proposed amendment to Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances, Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 12, Performance Standards, receive first passage by a roll call vote, and that the public hearing on said ordinance amendments be continued to the next regularly scheduled city council meeting.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Councilor Clement, followed by Councilor Jelinas. Director Hediger.
Sure. This is probably the more complicated change of the evening. First change is just making some language consistent with state law with respect to erosion control and our MS4 zone. You'll see similar language in the next agenda item as well. It's just kind of belt and suspenders to make sure that we're referencing the right sections of state law. The rest of this is an amendment with respect to home occupations. You'll recall in Article 2, we deleted that whole section of home occupations because it was a definition that really had performance standards, and we felt as though that performance standard should be in Article 12, where all the other performance standards are. What we tried to do here is break home occupations down basically into 3 criteria. There's a home occupation 1 and a home occupation 2, and then there's no permits required. We are often asked upstairs when people come upstairs for a home-based business, they may be doing something out of their residence where they're not generating any vehicular traffic. They're not selling anything. They just have like a home office and they're doing their own thing. And right now, technically, they're supposed to get a permit from us. We're eliminating that. We don't need a permit for that. You want to operate at a coffee table in your living room, have at it. You're not disturbing the neighbors or anything like that. We've come up with 2 other home occupation criteria, though, to still capture some of the concerns that might occur from home-based businesses out there. The home occupation 1 would be if you meet any of these criteria that you have in front of you, and it talks about traffic and the number of employees and doing sales and things of that nature, where you're selling products either offline or online for professional offices or other occupations, where the public comes to the site 1 client at a time, including the following but not limited to activities such as music lessons, maybe medical services without a laboratory, personal services such as a 1-chair beauty salon, things of that nature. That kind of falls in line with our existing home occupation criteria today. Those types of uses would get a change of use / home occupation permit from us. So we've done 2 things with this language at this point. We've eliminated all the folks that are doing the simple thing that don't rise to the occasion. Neighbors don't know about it. Great. Don't even bother coming to the 3rd floor. People that are doing a little bit of traffic, have a home-based business, maybe somebody's going in and out a little bit, you get a permit from us, and you make sure you meet these criteria. Home occupation 2 is another step above that, and it's probably just easier for me to read this, that if you're meeting all of the home occupation criteria, A through H, and we can discuss those, then you're gonna need a conditional use permit, and it's gonna be for activities like farm stands, small engine repair, automotive detailing, woodworking, food sales handling or processing, contractors, any occupation that involves a sale on premise but not including remote sales. So we get a lot of people that come upstairs and I'm gonna do eBay or Amazon or something and the product never shows up at their house. Great, not a problem, get a home occupation permit. But now if I wanna have some inventory of some sort, is that potentially gonna generate more traffic? Is there gonna be more activity there? And quite frankly, those are the home occupations that we usually find out about from the neighbors. They call us up and say, there's a lot of activity next door, what's going on? Are they operating within the requirements? So to try to provide a little more opportunity for home-based businesses, we're suggesting this home occupation 2 criteria where, great, you might be able to do it, but you're gonna need to go to the Board of Appeals. You're gonna need to get a conditional use permit. So that way it puts the notices, the abutters on notice, everybody within 300 feet that, hey, this neighbor wants to have a home-based business where they are gonna be processing food, or they wanna do small engine repair. They're gonna be working on snow blowers and lawnmowers or something like that. Those are things that might generate more traffic, more activity, that might raise concerns. Do you have enough parking? What type of activity are you going to be producing? Is there going to be noise, odor, vibration, things like that? So there would be a public hearing process to vet that, and that way concerns could be addressed as to, geez, does there need to be a buffer? What does this individual do with all the old snow blowers when they're done? Does it become a scrapyard in the back? No, it doesn't. But where are you gonna put those things in the meantime? That type of situation. So we're trying to break it out to provide more flexibility for small businesses, the 1 or 2 person show, but give them an opportunity to have a little more activity, but not just have it blessed by staff. Have some checks and balances by bringing it to the Board of Appeals for a conditional use. If you don't meet any of these things, then you're probably going to need to be you're either not going to be allowed use, or you're going to be going through development review through either the staff review committee or the planning board.
Discussion from the council. Councillor Scott.
Excuse me. So just a question. So the farm stand piece, and I'm just thinking, okay, so me personally, I've got a huge garden. I put a table out there for everybody in my neighborhood to come pick up the extra peas and the zucchini, the tons of zucchini. That's not, I'm not making money off of it, but people do stop, and it probably does cause some traffic on my street, and I'm feeling like, have I been non-complying all this time?
What's your address, Counselor?
Yeah. So, I know I do this, and I've seen it around the community as well, so I'm just curious as to where that lies in that.
Yeah, so we use some discretion with this, right? If you're putting a table out with a bunch of tomatoes on it, I'm not gonna ask staff to go out and do something about it. You set up a pop-up tent and you have several tables out there and it's lining up on the side of the street because your zucchini's incredible. We probably have a problem then at that point. We're probably gonna say, hey, you're probably a home occupation 2 at this point. You really should, because depending on where you are, I don't know, you could be in rural Lewiston and it's probably not gonna be an issue because lots are large, there's plenty of parking maybe on your property. You're doing this on, I don't know, Pond Road or College Street. You probably don't want, and you're close to an intersection, there's probably gonna be concerns with traffic then at that point. And that's when we're gonna say, hey, great, it's not that you can't do it, but you're gonna need to go through a process now. Right now, if we wanted to, we could probably say, sorry, but stop selling those tomatoes. That's not the intent of this. Actually, the intent is to try to give a little more flexibility.
Okay.
The other point too is farm stands is very specific in our ordinance. Farm stands is limited to 500 square feet, May through December, I think. So unless you're putting a 5,000 square foot, granted, it could be smaller, but you're putting, a shed next to the road or something, that's a farm stand at that point.
Thank you.
I visited at least one neighborhood lemonade stand this past summer. I trust that will not be impacted.
No. The right answer is that that individual probably should have got a license for food processing and had a visit from code enforcement to make sure that they're processing their lemonade in a safe manner.
Fair enough. The lemonade was delicious, and I survived. So,
If they give it away and ask for a donation, that's something totally different.
oh, I paid money. We'll let it slide. Thank you. Further discussion from the council? Public comment on this agenda item? Back to the council. Director Hediger, anything else?
Nothing.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 11.
Item number 11, public hearing and first passage for an amendment to the Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 13, Development Review and Standards. Requested action that the proposed amendment to Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 13, Development Review and Standards, receive first passage by a roll call vote, and that the public hearing on said ordinance amendments be continued to the next regularly scheduled city council meeting.
So moved.
Councilor McCarthy, followed by Councilor Councilor Pease. Director Hediger.
Same language as you just approved in Article 12. It's a reference to the state DEP rules with respect to stormwater. Again, just making sure that we're consistent with what we need to be doing for state stormwater regulations.
Discussion from the council. Public comment on this agenda item. Back to the council. Councilor LaChapelle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Hediger, I want to commend you and your staff. The City Council and the Planning Board gave your staff some directions a few months ago, and this looks like hundreds, if not thousands, of changes that we're making to our codes to make it easier to live in Lewiston, to develop in Lewiston, and for developers to come to Lewiston and see that we're taking this very seriously. Congratulations to you and your staff. I know this is a daunting task, and we're just about halfway through, and we've got a long ways to go, but you're doing a fine job. So I want to thank you for your hard work and dedication.
Thanks. And, yeah, I will echo that. My staff has been great, both on the planning and code side. Everybody's had their fingers in certain aspects of this going forward. So we've got a good group of people up there, and this would not be happening if we didn't have the help that we have right now. So.
Good job.
Yes, thank you. Further discussion? Anything else, Director Hediger?
Not this time.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Agenda item number 12.
Item number 12, public hearing and adoption of resolve approving the Lewiston fiscal year 24, federal fiscal year 2023, community development block grant budget and action plan for submittal to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Requested action to conduct a public hearing and adopt the resolve approving the Lewiston fiscal year 24, federal fiscal year 2023, community development block grant budget and action plan for submittal to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
So moved.
Motion, please. Councilor Jelinas.
Second.
Second by Councilor Harriman. Director Jeffers, do you want to kick us off?
I'd be happy to. This is your third time hearing it, second full public hearing. We first heard this back in March as a public, it was a workshop, but no public comment was taken. I do have a PowerPoint I could present, but third time around, I suspect you all don't want to hear it. Councilor Jelinas was on the committee. We had Pauline Gudis, Opine Gay, Andrew Finney and Caleb Roebuck were the citizens who participated. They listened to all the agencies. We got applications from each agency. It's a broad brushstroke. We invite people to apply. It's a competitive process. The city received $843,459. 15% of that can be given to the agencies, and that's really where the bulk of the Citizen Advisory Committee's efforts are focused. 6 agencies were recommended for funding this year. Trinity Jubilee's Day Shelter at $39,000, Trinity Jubilee's Food Pantry at $22,000, Seniors Plus and their Nourishment and Wellness Program for $25,000, Lewiston Adult Ed for skill-based work readiness training gets $23,958, Literacy volunteers who helps immigrants really learn the language of the workplace. Very, very much a hands-on program. Got $5,340. And New Beginnings with the homeless youth shelter and helping them with their education. That was the recommended for funding. This also runs the CDBG program's office administration is capped at 20% of the allocation. That's $168,692. We fund one Lewiston code enforcement position. We fund the rehabilitation program administration under this. We also provide $50,000 worth of matches for the lead grant, where we've got a $5.3 million lead grant that we need to provide some match on that. Last two things, we also had two public works projects. Unfortunately, we did not have enough money left over to fund both of them in their entirety, but the committee recommended that the Horton Street paving and sidewalk project be fully funded at $196,000. And Vale Street paving and sidewalk project needed $535,000. And basically, the committee recommended that the funding that was left over after everything else be given towards to help with that project going forward. I believe the rest of it's either being bonded or being done from the fund balance. And that was $75,000. In a nutshell, on CDBG, that's what is being recommended at this point.
Thank you very much, Director. Yes, Councilor Peace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did we hold back $50,000 out of this for the store next door?
We did, but not out of this pot of money.
Not out of this
Not
pot of
out of
money.
this. We get a lot of various, they're all home, HUD, Department of Housing and Urban Development related funding. That was from the home ARP funding is what we held the money out for the store next door.
Okay, well, I'm asking the question on store next door. Has anybody still been helping them to get certified or accepted for qualified?
Jessica and I did meet with them, both the executive director and board chair. And Jessica has left the city's employee about 2 weeks ago. So we started the conversation. We haven't finished the conversation. But to be candid, they were in better shape than we anticipated, and that they were sort of operated under the auspices of the Lewiston School Department, which has much more structure. The fact that we can fund Lewiston Adult Ed, that's where we sort of said, okay, if it's just another program in the school department, we should be able to figure out how to get this done. But I have not finished the conversation yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Councilor Jelinas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you for this report, Director Jeffers. It's very thorough, and I did have the pleasure of serving on the Citizen Advisory Committee under the leadership of Chair Gudis. And, when you talk about the process, I want folks to know that the agencies that were funded really have to go through an incredibly thorough process, and the reporting requirements coming back to us are really intense as well. But, in listening to those presentations and in reading over their packets, there's a lot of really valuable stuff going on, some really good resources there and some really good services being provided by these agencies. So just wanted to make comment on that. And thank you again for this report.
Yes, I would like to publicly thank Pauline Gudis and the rest of the committee for doing such an excellent job. Further comments from the council? Public comment on this agenda item? And back to the council. Anything else you'd like to add, Director Jeffers?
No, actually, Councilor Jelinas, really, I was remiss that really these agencies do incredible work. The only reason we don't fund all of them, well, two things. We don't have enough money to fund all of them, but also HUD says you can only fund 6 agencies because of the exhaustive reporting requirements and staff time. But that's always the struggle for the committee, that all these organizations do wonderful work. How do we pick the best? Who's going to give us our best bang for the buck? So that's really largely the work of the committee.
Thank you.
Yep.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Council from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 13.
Item number 13, public hearing and approval of the city fiscal year 24, federal fiscal year 23 home budget and action plan for submittal to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Requested action to hold a public hearing and approve the city fiscal year 24, federal fiscal year 23 home budget and action plan for submittal to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
So moved.
Counselor McCarthy, followed by Counselor Pease. Director Jeffers.
Yes, this is another program funded by HUD. We are part of a consortium with the city of Auburn. They are the lead on the organization, so they get on the consortium, so they get a bit more of the administrative funding that's available. The city this year will receive $259,787, and again, the committee recommended that $13,673 of that be used for administration. $15,000 are available to help for security deposits for folks who are homeless or near homeless to help them get into new housing. And there's an application process for that. The rest of the funding Lewiston has historically used to help leverage large low-income housing and mixed-income housing tax credit projects. And there are 3 that we are recommending. One of them is up and running already, and that is Gavro Place, which opened about a year ago. There were program delivery costs associated with that we had said we're giving you $325,000 to help build the project. As we went through the project, we realized we had not budgeted for the project delivery cost at staff time. So this year, we're asking for $30,460 to cover that shortfall, make us whole on that project. And sorry, I've got my budget here. We've got the Wedgwood project, which is, we learned from our last mistake. They're going to be getting $450,000 worth of funding to help build that, but we are building in $20,000 of program delivery costs. And then the money that is left over is $308,057, and that is for a future project. Likely it would be the DeWitt project, which is the second phase of the Choice Neighborhood Program. But the Wedgwood project is in the final stages of financing. We're very hopeful that they will be breaking ground within the next month or 2.
Thank you, Director. Comments from the council? Public comment for this agenda item. And back to the council. Thank you, Director Jeffers. And Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are now up to agenda item 14.
Item number 14, final budget public hearing for the fiscal year 2024 municipal budget. Requested action to conduct a final budget public hearing to receive citizen input and communication regarding the proposed fiscal year 2024 municipal budget.
Thank you. I don't believe I need motions for this, correct?
Correct.
Madam Clerk?
Correct.
Yeah. Can I have a show of hands to see who is planning to speak for the hearing? Okay, if I can just get everyone, so we're going to be observing a strict 3-minute time, and if I can get everyone to start queuing up behind the podium, and whoever would like to go first, please do so.
Hi, my name is Mrs. Radigan, and I work at Lewiston High School. I'm representing Elizabeth Peters. She gave me a letter of the importance of SEL and its implementations and example. On Friday, April 28th, Lewiston High School had its Diversity Day celebration assembly. Every student was supposed to be in attendance. This creates a very crowded and often loud environment at its inception, and that can be overwhelming for many students and staff who are neurodivergent and who have severe crowd anxiety. I am one of those teachers. But over the years, I have learned many coping mechanisms on my own and through trainings to help me adjust to this fear. As a result, I often stand in the hall as students make their way to the gymnasium and watch out for those who may be starting to have panic attacks. On this day, I spied a young man sitting on the bench in the first floor hall outside the guidance office. He had his head down and his head in his hands. I casually walked up to a safe distance away and asked him how things were going. If he was okay, he lifted his head and waved his hand in the direction of the gym where everyone was headed. All he could get out is, it's too much. Too many people, I asked. He nodded. I told him it was okay to feel anxious and that he didn't have to go into the gym and that it would be a shame to miss the performance. I told him I would go with him and we could stand outside in the hallway. I asked him his name and introduced myself after he stood up, and so that we could go so he would feel more at ease. We slowly walked to the gym after the majority of the students had passed by and then waited in the hall as promised while the band started playing. He then said he felt like he needed to sit down, and I went and we got a chair, which he carried himself. He placed it just outside the gym door, and we stayed there for about 10 minutes. I then said that it was getting difficult to see because other people were in the way, and suggested he bring the chair inside. He seemed more relaxed at this point and interested in the band and other student performances. He complied and then again moved the chair forward so he could see better. After a couple of teachers realized they were in the way, they moved out of the way. He continued to relax and began to look around the crowd. In a few minutes, he asked, I see a couple of my friends up there. Would it be okay if I went up and sat with them? Absolutely, I said, and waved him upward to the bleachers. I continued to casually monitor him to make sure he was okay, and he was just sitting there beside them and watching the remainder of the assembly. This was a successful introduction into a school event that enabled him to enjoy his peers' accomplishments and be independent. That is what social-emotional learning can do for teachers and for students. It is about success both in and out of the classroom. It is about recognizing a student at risk and guiding them.
That's time, please. Thank you. You're welcome to email the rest of your comments to publiccomment@lewistonmaine.gov.
Hello, my name is Jay Rich, and I'm a a teacher of multilingual students at Lewiston Public Schools and the president of the Lewiston Education Association. I'm here tonight in support of the budget passed by the Lewiston School Committee. As we continue to deal with the education loss due to the pandemic, some students have really struggled the past few years to keep up with academic demands as they make up for the loss. Thankfully, by using ESSER funds, LPS has provided additional response to intervention, or RTI instructors, to give students extra support. Educators have also received in-depth math and literacy training over the past 2 years to reach struggling students, and the growth we've seen is phenomenal. We received access scores this week, and this is the exam that multilingual students take to demonstrate their proficiency in English and exit the program. And if you've ever seen this exam, it is very difficult. This year, 79 students district-wide have exited the program, and this is an increase from 65 the previous year. Another example of our amazing students is the work of our robotics, Skills USA, and mock trial teams who have competed and won in many local and state competitions. Many of those students are also going to nationals and receiving full ride scholarships to college. So I ask, why would we want to stop that? Why would we want to hamper the progress of our students? Further cuts to our school would only threaten the educational growth of our most at-risk populations, including and not limited to our multilingual families, our unhoused families, our families from lower socioeconomic status. Superintendent Langlis, the school committee, and the LPS business office have looked at our budget with a fine-tooth comb. They have eliminated line items that would save the district and city money while keeping schools open, operational, and compliant with state and federal requirements. However, if the district is required to make further cuts, the education of our students, our children, is at risk. We wouldn't be setting up our students to be successful in and out of the classroom and could present circumstances where the district could be sued for being non-compliant, and this would only add to the cost of the city and taxpayers. I would again love to invite you to McMahon to see the work that we are doing day in and day out, because I strongly believe you cannot possibly know what goes on in our schools without being there yourself. You can listen to community members, read social media posts, but you cannot replace physically being in schools and seeing the amazing progress that we are making. Our children deserve a funded education, one that would attract and retain highly qualified educators, a school system that is able to continue to provide high-quality professional development, purchase equipment, and replace a leaking roof when we have torrential rainstorms. When our schools are funded, our students and staff benefit and in turn create a safer and more educated Lewiston. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Please, quiet in the council chambers. Councilor Clement, did you have something?
Yes, point of order, Mr. Mayor. We're on item number 18, which is the municipal budget. These comments have had to do...
We're on 15.
We're on 15.
14.
Excuse me.
Still.
I'm looking ahead.
It's municipal budget.
Yeah, municipal budget is what we're discussing at this point in time, not the school budget, which is a separate item. I don't know of anybody here that's proposing any further cuts to the school budget. I think we've settled that in our workshop session, and I don't believe we're looking to do anything further. So,
Madam, thank you, Councilor Clement. Madam Clerk, can you, what is the agenda item for the school budget, Madam Clerk?
Item number 20.
Item number 20.
Entitled Resolve Approving the Fiscal Year 24 Budget for the Lewiston School Department.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Clement, I appreciate that, and I'll take ownership of this. When I spoke to teachers beforehand, I directed them, they wondered when to speak, and I told them agenda item 14. So at this point, we will be picking this back up, agenda item 20. Is there, okay, so yes, the municipal budget. Is there any comment for that? Thank you, Councilor Clement.
thank you, sir.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm Phoenix McLaughlin, Brooks Avenue in Ward 1. I'm a member of the Finance Committee when you're about to receive the recommendation from us, but this is a little bit tangential, more related to the municipal budget overall. After our last meeting, I had watched the following council meeting, and I thought it was interesting how much of the conversation was around the state revenue sharing and what portion of that to count towards the budget. And it seems like you all kind of have that sorted out. So this isn't necessarily to share an opinion one way or another on what to choose for that number now specifically, but more just food for thought and maybe something for going forward. But I did, the past revenue sharing projections are still posted on the state website, as are the previous city budgets, and so I just went back and compared for the previous years, and I thought I would just share. So of those past 15 fiscal years, out of 13 of those, the city received 100% or more of what the final projection was from the state, except for 2 fiscal years, 2009, 2010, obviously a big recession around then, when the city received 87% for both those years of the revenue sharing. And I think based on the conversation that was had, I think probably everyone could kind of take that information and hear that it kind of supports their side of it, right? On one hand, if you assume there's going to be a recession, you wouldn't want to budget more than 85%. On the other hand, you wouldn't necessarily want to every time budget below what the city is getting, because it can throw off the budgeting process. And I just wanted to share both that information, but then also just an opinion that it might be worth considering going forward. Budgeting every year as if there could be a recession, but not as if you think there will be. The difference being that none of us are even professional economists really don't get that right, and I think it might be worth considering how to set the budget in such a way that it's resilient in case there is a recession. I think the idea actually that you seem to be going towards of having a certain amount that is budgeted, sort of kept in reserve, maybe that's not the right terminology, but expected to potentially have to dip into that is if in case of that particular revenue line going under expectations, that might be something worth considering every year, so that you don't have to always under budget that particular line or any line, but still have a sort of safety net for that particular piece going forward, because otherwise you end up shortchanging yourself a little bit. You can't lower taxes or fund ongoing services. It just ends up in fund balance at the end of the year, which is only restricted to certain items. So I just wanted to share a bit of that thought and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Somebody had to bring up the words revenue sharing. Matt Roy, Ward 3. On the topic of revenue sharing, there's one easy way to get rid of this whole debacle every budget cycle about revenue sharing. First of all, revenue sharing, when it started in the 70s, was ticket fines that the state police would give in each county. Obviously, it's changed since then, but the more stable way to actually budget is for the state to change the sales tax law where municipalities, at that 5.5%, when you pay that $5.50 for every $100 that falls under sales tax, is for 10% of that to go directly for the business to pay that to City Hall, 5% to go to the school board, the local, school administrative district and counties. And if the county actually got 5% of all of the sales tax from the 14 towns, they wouldn't need a TAM, most likely. Thanks to Lewiston Arbor, pretty much, obviously. Thank you.
Further public comment for the municipal budget? And public comment is now closed. I thank our educators for your comments thus far, and we will pick you back up agenda item number 20. Madam Clerk, agenda item number 15.
Item number 15, receipt of the Finance Committee's recommendation regarding the proposed fiscal year 2024 municipal budget. Requested action to receive and review the recommendation from the Finance Committee regarding the proposed fiscal year 2024 municipal budget.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Councilor Clement.
Second.
Second by Councilor Harriman. Discussion. Public comment on this agenda item. Back to the council. Councilor Clement.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. You've heard from the author of the document tonight. He's done another fine job, as he did with the LCIP. I listened to his comments a moment ago, and I was moved by something I heard this afternoon. As we consider our budget, 3 of the 4 largest bank insolvencies in the country's history have occurred in the last couple months. And I think that we've talked about this, and this may be a harbinger of some tough times to come. 3 of the 4 largest insolvencies, and they've all occurred in the present, within the last couple of months. So, I'm not an economist. I don't profess to be. I wouldn't want to be one right now because I don't know that they have an accurate prognostication on things to come. I hope that what we're hearing about it being good is what happens. I don't want to see us in a recession or worse. Thank you.
Further comments? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Council from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you. Agenda item number 16.
Item number 16, resolve authorizing the use of $11,208,293 from the general fund unassigned fund balance for capital outlay purchases and other one-time expenses. Requested action to approve the resolve authorizing the use of $11,208,293 from the general fund unassigned fund balance for capital outlay purchases and other one-time expenses.
May I have a motion, please? Councilor Pease.
Second.
Second by Councilor Clement. Discussion. Public comment for this agenda item. Back to the council. Madam Clerk, or Councilor McCarthy.
Just want to make one comment. There's been a lot of talk about revenue sharing and how much we should be using. Well, due to using only, I believe, 77% in the last budget, we have this $11 million to spend on other items, one-shot deals that were pulled out of the regular city budget. And if it wasn't for that $11 million, that's like a $5 million rate increase on the taxes. That's what $11 million comes out to. So people have to realize that there's reasons other than, it's not like we're just putting this money aside to use willy-nilly. This money is put aside for two reasons. One is a buffer against a recession, but also as a fund balance to help with the following year's budget. I don't see us having anywhere near the $11 million next year. Our employment in the city is getting closer to 100%, so you haven't got these salaries that aren't going to be paid through the year. So I anticipate that the fund balance will be far lower next year. I think that's fair to say that on the school side too, that because of all of the positions that are not funded this year, that they're not going to have the fund balance next year to put towards the budget. So I'm the cheapskate on the council. That's well known. But I try to look ahead. I don't plan 1 year to the next. I try to look at 2-3 years out, what direction the city's is going. This isn't easy. I think if you ask all 7 people plus myself up here, it's been a tough year. I think if you ask the school committee, they'll tell you the same. It's not like we have a giant pot of money that we can divide up. So just want people to realize that this $11 million that was there for fund balance won't be there next year. And it's made a significant cut in the tax rate for this year. So that's what, it looks like a large number, but it was used very wisely by the city staff, especially the administrator with her magic wand. She was able to pull this all together, and so I support this, and I don't look forward to next year. Thank you.
Further comment from the council? Councilor Scott.
Thank you. I just want to also say to the audience and the folks at home that, we're not having a lot of discussion about this stuff. You're hearing us kind of just go through and vote. But a lot of this, we've already discussed this through our budget process and our workshop meetings. And what we're discussing right now is work that would be like for office equipment, for maintenance and licensing, just to give you some understanding, public safety equipment for our fire department, and there is a list, and I would encourage anybody that may have any further questions about that. This is available on the city's website so that you can see the exact list of where this money would be going.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 17.
Item number 17, order authorizing the city administrator to provide city services totaling $55,869.69 and cash donations totaling $12,135 for city nonprofit organization activities in accordance with the fiscal year 24 City Council approved list.
So moved.
Councilor Jelinas.
Second.
Second by Councilor McCarthy. Discussion from the council. Councilor Harriman.
Thank you. So as I was looking through this, when we left the workshop on this item, I thought that we had all agreed to fund all of the items on the cash requests, but then there's only 2 on here. And I know a couple of them have been funded through other means, but I just wondered if there's any appetite on the council to fund those other asks that didn't get funded.
Can you be more specific?
Councilor Jelinas.
We're just gonna, can you be more specific, Counselor Harriman?
Okay, so it looks like it was, the ones that didn't get funded were Androscoggin Home Health Care and Hospice, the Commit to Get Fit Challenge, and the Life Flight Foundation and the Summer Fun and Films outdoor movie nights. And I had thought that we were, because nobody objected to them, that they were going to be funded, but then I realized later that we had to put them forward. So I just wanted to see if anyone had any appetite to to fund any of those.
Counselor Scott.
Thank you. I'm wondering if we could have the city administrator tell us what might already be taken care of and what the total would be on that. Do we have a total on that?
Administrator Hunter.
Are you looking at the list that he just read?
Yes.
Is that what he's looking at? So you're adding what? Liberty Festivals, 250, 24. Looks like 16,500.
And was the largest one in there the Fun Film Festival at 10,000, if
That's
I remember
correct.
correctly?
I think so.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Nope, please continue.
Thank you. So I would be in favor of having a little bit further discussion on that. I'm not sure that I'm in favor for the full 10,000 for the Summer Film Festival. I'd like to cut that maybe a little bit, but I do recognize that what that does, it's not just the 5 movies that are done each year. It's also the summertime party in the park for the students before they go back to school, and also the block party. So I would be okay with having a little discussion around that. Maybe lowering the 10,000 to 5,000 or something to that respect, so it's a little bit more equal to what the others might be receiving. Just putting that out there.
Do we have Detective Philip on here this evening? No? Okay. Oh, yes. Detective Philippon, do you mind just coming to the podium and, I guess, explaining what the funds would be used for exactly?
Yes, sure. The program had been well received by the community, and just due to increased attendance, just looking to expand the programming that we offer before the movie starts. So we have 2 portions. We have the movie night, but before the movie starts, we have pre-movie activities that are free for families. One of the hang-ups that we have is just that we have a lot of people, a lot of kids that show up, and long lines. They're not able to get access to everything. 2 of the more popular items are the bounce houses, where we currently have 2, looking to add 1 more so we could have 3 at each movie night. And also balloon twisters, the balloon animals, which is really popular. Right now, we currently have 2. Ideally, with this additional funding, we would be able to increase that to maybe up to 4.
I just have, one second, Councilor McCarthy. I just have one quick clarification here, Administrator Hunter. So the Liberty Fest requested 12,500, but in fact, we only are, according to the agenda item, funding them 10,000. Is that what?
Yes, we kept the request flat.
I see. Okay. Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Joe is
Detective.
fine. Joe is fine.
Joe's fine, okay. Sorry, I lose track of people's ranks, and I don't want to insult anybody because you guys do a great job for us. What's your total budget?
For the whole program this summer, to include the back-to-school concert and the block party, I'm looking at just a little over $31,000.
Where do you get most of that funding?
Sponsorships, support from local businesses, and grants.
Now, does the city support you in any way right now?
The current support historically has been using gas to fill up the generators, and the person who maintains the cruiser fleet, they also check the generators, change the oil filters, and then we use a truck to tow the trailer around.
Okay, and the officers that are there, are they on city time?
Yeah, no, there's no overtime expenditure for that. And then the only thing, I want to go back, a big support in this is Public Works. They just make sure that the mowing schedule happens before we have an event. The work fair crew typically will go before, drop off the trash cans. Luckily, because I work for the city, I can drive the truck, so, they load up the tables and chairs, drop off a truck, and then I pack up everything and bring it back to them, and they pick up the water.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
For Councilor Jelinas.
Thank you. I would concur with Councilor Scott in that I'm open to more discussion around this. I appreciate Councilor Harriman bringing this up. One of the things on your list, Councilor, was the commit to get bit, the St. Mary's thing, and And Administrator Hunter, is that because the amount there under the request column is lower than what was requested by them? For the St. Mary's?
It's the list that they request, there's two pieces, there's the
Yep.
in-kind piece.
Yep.
And then there's the cash piece.
Okay, so it's the, all right, I get it, it's the cash piece, yep.
One more question, Administrator Hunter, regarding fireworks. So it's my understanding that Liberty Fest also receives money from the city of Auburn?
That's correct.
And then was their request going up by the same amount?
I don't know. I can't answer that, and I don't know what Auburn's just kind of midway through their budget process, so I don't know what their funding level will be.
I see. Okay. Councilor LaChapelle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've spent a considerable amount of time on each one of these, in each budget cycle, looking at them. I'm fairly confident with where we're at. This is just opening Pandora's box when we start opening up different things. And I guess my opinion is I'm fine where we're at, and I would vote in favor of this resolve. Thank you.
Councilor Clement?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would remind everybody here that we have not approved, to my recollection, any new programs this year. We've had numerous requests for new programs. Some of them major, some of them minor. As it stands now, I believe we started our budget process with a budget that requested $5.96 increase in the tax rate. As it now stands, what we're approving tonight, I believe, is an even
$30.
Of which roughly $1.30 is due to the school department, 20 cents is due to the city, approximately. It's a very lean budget. 20 cents supports all city services, all essential services, our police department, our fire department, our public works department. I'm just not in favor of adding anything more at this point. We've had knockdown dragouts now since the end of February, a couple nights a week, and I just think that what's done is done. Let's move on. Thank you.
Further comments from the council? Public discussion for this agenda item? Back to the council. Councilor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are we voting to increase this or leave it the way it is?
There is no motion on the table or amendment at this point, so.
I wasn't sure. Harriman was saying. Thank you.
There is a motion.
Well, sorry, yes, there is a motion on the floor, but there's been no amendment made at this point. Sorry,
Okay,
that
thank you.
clarification. Further discussion from the council? Councilor Scott?
So I would agree with Councilor Clement that this has been, been some long nights and long conversations, and I understand where you're coming from on this. I would just ask that we do a little better next year on looking at this a little further, because I feel like, honestly, I kind of feel like there wasn't enough discussion around this a little bit, and I wish we had a little more, but in the good favor of moving forward, let's move forward with this.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Approving as is.
Counselor from Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
No.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6 to 1.
Agenda item number 18.
Item number 18, resolve approving the final budget adjustments to the fiscal year 24 municipal budget. Requested action to adopt the resolve approving the final budget adjustments to the fiscal year 24 municipal budget.
So moved.
Second.
Councilor Pease, followed by Councilor Clement. Discussion? Public comment? Back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Agenda item number 19.
Item number 19, resolve, making an appropriation for fiscal budget year 2024. Requested action to approve the resolve, making an appropriation for municipal budget year 2024.
May I have a motion, please? Councilor Pease, second by Councilor Harriman. Discussion. Public comment? Back to the council. Administrator Hunter.
Certainly. I would just like to remind the viewing audience and those in the audience, as well as various staff and other public officials, we started this process mid-March. At that point in time, to Councilor Clement's point, we had proposed going from $28.50 to $34.46, or just shy of a $6 increase, which is just shy of 21%. With the anticipated approval of the budget, we are now reducing it down to $30 even. That's a 10-cent increase on the municipal side of the house. That's $1.34 with the latest adjustments approved by the school committee, and then 6 cents by accounting for the overall increase of $1.50, or a 5.27% increase.
Thank you, Administrator Hunter, and I would like to thank you, along with Director Roy and the rest of the department heads, for all of your hard work over this past budget cycle. And I would also like to thank my fellow council members, the councilors. Thank you for all of your input and hard work as well. Further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Now we are at agenda item number 20.
Item number 20, resolve, approving the fiscal year 24 budget for the Lewiston School Department. Requested action to adopt the resolve approving the fiscal year 24 budget for the Lewiston School Department.
So moved.
Councilor Harriman, followed by Councilor McCarthy. Discussion. Public comment. People still wish to speak. I will not allow people who have spoken before to speak now. But if you haven't already spoken about the school budget, please do so now.
Hi, my name is Amy Ranger, and I teach at Lewiston High School. And I'd like to start by just acknowledging Councilor LaChapelle, and I just want to start by sharing with what I agree with you on with your concerns about our students. You shared a lot in what you spoke about wanting our students to be strong. And I want to state how, from my experience as an educator, how important social emotional learning is to building resilience. There's been a lot of concern as of late with robots, AI. We do not teach robots, thank God. We have students, we have humans, and they're messy. I'm going to just share one story. There's a million I could share of the ways that SEL has social emotional learning strategies that in my classroom, the effect they've had on students. I have a student who, the beginning of the semester, his father is dying. His mother is holding down the fort, trying to pay all the bills, 3 kids, and they're currently being evicted. And he has to come to school and learn, and it is my job to teach him. It is my job to teach him, regardless of what's happening. And I want to clarify, social emotional learning, from the way I use it, it is not, oh, you're having a hard day, so you don't have to do this. It's about saying, you're having a hard time, and you will do this. You're having a hard time, and you're going to do this, and I'm going to help you find the ways to do this. I regret to tell you that the student's mother emailed me in January. I'm a new teacher, so I didn't see this email until last week. The email she sent me said, I think that my son should be pulled from your class because he has some extreme anxiety and there's a lot going on at home and he's not going to be able to do the things that you're going to ask him to do. And I am very pleased to share that I was able to email her back and say, your son shared and did an oral presentation for the first time in his life. and he excelled. And this isn't a pat on the back to me. It is 100% attributed to the work that we do in the class. And when I'm not vaguely talking about strategies, I want to say what we do is just have check-ins, conversations about feelings. And it's very brief. It does not take up a lot of time, but it is vital to building the relationships and creating a space where students can learn. And I'm grateful that we have that culture and that is an emphasis in the school. I do not believe that social emotional learning is in opposition to resilience. I think it is the foundation to resilience. Thank you.
Please hold your applause. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deanna Earhart. I'm a Lewiston resident, and I'm the Dean of Students at the middle school. I was here 2 weeks ago for the where the school budget was proposed, and I want to speak to SEL as well. I have to admit I was really saddened by one of our counselors' comments in regards to Lewiston Public Schools, and in particular to SEL. I wish education was as simple as academics, and that's all we had to do, but it's just not. Just like that educator before me just spoke, we have kids that are barely making it on a daily because of what goes on in their home lives. I could literally cry with what I hear. And I worked at the high school for 4 years prior to this year at the middle school. But I want to tell you guys just a few things what our kids go through, and try to remember that Lewiston has plenty of generational poverty and generational trauma. Our kids are dealing with adverse childhood experiences like divorced or separated parents, physical abuse, sexual abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect. They're witnessing domestic violence. There's substance abuse in the household, mental illness in the household, and family members in prison. Now, this isn't just Lewiston, this is all over the world, but what we do when we're educators that are focused in SEL and equity, we're helping our kids that are coming to school and they can't show up to learn, to be able to learn. And sometimes we're just literally helping a kid survive one day of their life, much less learning how to do the Pythagorean theorem. So it is really important that we do this SEL work. And I have to tell you, as an educator in Lewiston, I'm proud of the work that we do. And I'm just going to tell you all that Lewiston, Maine is leading the way in equity. Well, let's say Lewiston Public Schools is leading the way in equity and SEL work in the state of Maine. And we should be patting ourselves on the back for that and trying to keep pushing forward instead of going backward.
Further public comment? Back to the council. Councilor Jelinek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm one of the fortunate ones that is in the public schools on a daily basis, and I have been in some capacity or another for the past 40 years. And, you know, I'm 100 years old. I mean, I definitely have these old attitudes, right? And so it's really taken a lot to educate me about what this is all about. And what I will say is thank you first for coming and sharing your comments. Your words matter, and I hear you. You know, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I'm a strong believer that social and emotional learning is just the foundation to everything else. And if you're not going to do that, then I think that's a waste of our time. I mean, we have to get to that foundation. That is so important. In my daily work in the Lewiston Public Schools, I see educators really using a trauma-informed approach. And so really changing the narrative from, you know, what's wrong with you to what happened to you. And let's make this happen. Let's make this work, right? And I just applaud the educators in our system because it is not easy work. And you're just doing a tremendous job. I'm I just want to say, you're the heroes. The work that you're doing day in and day out is not easy. And I'm fortunate, like I said, I'm in the schools every day, so I see it. I see the strategies being implemented. I see the connections being made. I see the progress being made. So what you're doing matters, and thank you.
Councillor Scott?
Thank you. So, as a city council rep on the school committee, and as a former school committee member for 3 terms, I can't thank you enough for showing up for the work that you do. I mean, half the stuff that I want to do, I do for the students in our school, in our city. I do what I do because I want to see the growth of our children in our city. So I thank you all for coming here. I thank the school committee members, as I see many of you in the audience. I saw a couple sneak in back there. Yep, I saw you, Bruce. And I want to thank the school committee also, the superintendent, and the school staff for the hard work and the tremendous amount of work that had to be done on this budget. And I also want to thank our city council for listening to me and for having that discussion and for coming to an agreement. It wasn't what everybody wanted, but we were able to come to an agreement, and we agreed to the $1.34, and I think that our city council deserves some recognition for that as well, and I appreciate that, and I just want you all to know that. So thank you all.
Councillor Harriman?
Thank you. I just wanted to also thank everyone who came out tonight, and generally everyone who emailed and wrote letters to the editor, giving your feedback on the budget, both the school and the city budget. It's really important to hear from you what your priorities are. It was loud and clear, the library and the schools especially this year, and I just really appreciate getting that feedback from the public, and thank you again.
Councillor Pease?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I direct a question to Director Superintendent? Now, on your budget, I didn't see it recently, but the store next door, am I correct to say that 50,000 was withdrawn from that? It's taken out of the budget?
So there was, a while back, a proposal to take $50,000 from that portion of our budget for the Student Resource Center. That money was put back in the budget. There has been a question, though, about a third position that was allocated this year temporarily with unexpended funds by the school committee. That was not carried in this budget. We didn't have the funds to add that at this time.
So does the store next door have funding?
There's still 2 positions in that role, or that serve that function for our Student Resource Center.
Okay. Because a lot of people don't realize what the store next door does for our homeless students. There are a lot of homeless students here. And when you say they're having a hard time at home, think about having a hard time at home and going to school with improper clothing or hygiene, right? Or any of that stuff, or having to worry about what you're going to eat, where you're going to go, where you're going to sleep. I'm glad to see that it's still available and it's still going to help them. And if we can have the school department help them get a grant of some kind, I wish you'd do so. And so we can expand that. The location they're in right now gives them affordability to have showers, be able to cook meals if they need to. There's a lot of possibilities that can go on down there. And they don't only serve the children. There's some families that come in there with their children because they have no place else to go. And they help them as well. So they do a great deal of work.
Yeah, we're very supportive of continuing to look for grants and other ways to fund that effort, not just with our Student Resource Center downstairs at Longley, and also our point of contacts and the work that we do with our homeless families overall, pre-K to 12.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Councillor LaChapelle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank this council and the school committee, and just to clarify a few things, me as a counselor, am not against the school committee at all. This is a very difficult time. It's difficult all the way around. I think we've made it abundantly clear that we're all on the same team. teams argue sometimes and disagree on some things, but we're all moving forward. The city of Lewiston took a 10-cent increase. The school department took a $1.34 increase. For anybody to say that we are not considering the students, I'd have to just look at that. This is going to pass tonight with a $1.34 increase, while the city of Lewiston gets a 10-cent increase. And I don't want it to be us against them. We are committed to the same system to help the students. I want to commend the teachers. They are the frontline workers. They bust their butts all day long, and sometimes to see little return, but maybe in 20 years from now, you're a new teacher, in 20 years from now, when some gentleman comes in or lady comes in and says, you know, you were my teacher, and this is what I'm doing now. And it's just an amazing feeling. We all know teachers that have impacted our lives, good and bad, in the future. So thank you for being a school teacher. God bless you. We as a society have really, it has changed. Teaching is not the same as it was 25 years ago. Totally understand it. New tactics have to be changed, has to be utilized. The way you use cell might be different than the way somebody else uses cell. I'm on the same team. I might not agree with some of the things. I think what happened at the middle school is absolutely criminal, and somebody should be charged for that. I will never agree with that, but I will also always support the teachers and support the school system. I'm also supporting that senior citizen that's sitting at home that has to eat friggin' cat food because they can't afford their medication and they can't afford anything else. So there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance. And I hope that just because we disagree, we don't have to criminalize each other. We don't have to, and I'm just looking at you because you talked to me, okay? So.
You remind me of my dad.
Okay.
Oh, son of
If I can have the council chambers quiet, please.
Obviously
Thank
an
you.
intelligent, well-inspected, well individual, so yes, so thank you. We support the school system. It's not us against them. I think we've made it quite clear that we're supporting the school system. And if we think this year hurts, folks, just wait until next year. It's gonna be miserable next year. You think people are fighting now? It's gonna get worse. So when next year comes, if we're all here in the same room, maybe we can sit down and just talk off the record a little bit and just see where we can move forward. This stinks. I'd love to give the school department a $10 mill rate, and the fire department, everybody. So thank you for your patience, and we have to stay civil with each other. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to thank Chairwoman Parks and the rest of the school committee for your service to our community. And thank you, Superintendent Linglis, and your team as well. My son is, I still have a kid in the Lewiston public school system. My son is a sophomore at Lewiston High School. And to all of his teachers, you know who you are. Thank you very much for teaching him. Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to be honest. When I first heard SEL, I had no clue what it is. And I'll tell you right now, I don't have a good understanding of it. I think it would behoove us as a council and as a school system for you to educate us on that, so that when this comes around next year and we have a tough budget season, we fully understand what's working, what's not working. So I think a workshop would be critical for just SEL to start with, and perhaps move forward from that with any other programs. Because when I first heard SEL, I said, oh, there goes another one of those buzzwords. Something new coming along, some garbage that they're trying to throw at us, and so you immediately get defensive. And I don't want to be that. I want to understand the school system. I am going to try to make some visits to the schools before the end of the year. I'll reach out to the superintendent and he can set it up for me, and to get an understanding of that. And then, like I said, perhaps in the fall, when things, back to school calms down, and before we get into budget season, then perhaps we should have that discussion so we all understand the good, the bad, the indifference, get a good understanding of what that program does in particular and anything else that should come forward. So I would like to see that. Thank you. Oh, and I want to thank all of the school employees, because from teachers, superintendent, all the way down to the bus drivers and the people feeding our students, it's a tough job. It's a tough job. I've got 5 children in the school system, so I know not only how hard it is for the teachers dealing with those kids, but some of the rules and regulations that they have to deal with makes it even more difficult, and perhaps we could have some discussion on that too. Thank you.
Councillor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll echo just some of the comments made thus far. I would like to thank my colleagues on the council. We've had some rather contentious sessions since this whole process started. It has not been an easy year. I think of my grandmother in her best New Brunswick accent. When we talk about wants and needs, she says, people in hell will be wanting ice water. So that's much the situation we may have found ourselves in this year. Communications from the community at large, both pro and con for our budget. We've heard from people supporting various favorite items that they have on the budget, things they wanted to see, things they didn't want to see get cut. Unfortunately, our session this year did require some cuts, and I think we came through it relatively unscathed. I don't believe we've had a layoff as a result of our budget. We have frozen a few positions, but nobody is laid off, nobody lost a job from this side, and that's due to just 10 cents on city services. I think of the communications that I get from the proverbial little old lady, somebody who's 80 years old, she's widowed, she's living in the family homestead and wondering how on Social Security she's going to manage a $5.96 tax increase. What are you going to do to help me so I don't have to move out of here? So these are the kind of things we hear. We hear an awful lot from the tax-exempt entities in town thinking we should spend more money, yet that entity does not contribute to anything for the city services. There are several of those here in town. I won't bother to name them, but I believe it's somewhere around 24 or 25% of our total city valuation is tax exempt. Think about that. Think about what we're spending for a budget, and think about how much 24, 25% additional in income would mean for the city of Lewiston. We'd love to have it. Probably never going to see it. There are some bright things on the horizon, I think. Hopefully we're going to see resolution of the New England Clean Energy Connects project. The courts have moved a couple of times on that. That'll be a huge issue with the city if it ever moves forward. But so with the tax exempt entities, if we could get something from them to help. I mean, they complain about lack of services and they don't want to see cuts, yet they don't contribute a cent to the operation of the city. This is an expensive business, ladies and gentlemen, $160 million total, roughly. Ballpark, I mean, you know, it's 160 million here, there. Pretty soon you're talking real money, I guess. But this is what we're faced with. We are not responsible for the school budget, other than the bottom line. We are not enemies of the school committee. We want to work with them. We have some very finite resources, very finite, and we have to divide those up and try to keep this operation juggled as best we can. I hope we've done that. Time will tell. I am also not looking forward to next year. I think that things are not looking good at this point. I hope that turns around, but if this same group is here, I feel confident that we will tackle. We may have some more contentious debates. We may scream and holler. So far, we haven't thrown furniture at each other. Yeah. We could come close, I think, a couple of times, but I just think that it's not pretty. They talk about making sausage. That's what a budget session is. You don't want to watch it close up, folks, really. You don't want to see how sausage is made. I thank everybody for their contribution, our colleagues on the school committee, our employees of the school department, our city employees. They have all contributed and they've given toward this process. And it has not been an easy thing for many of them to do, I'm sure. So thank you to everybody, and I hope that we all part ways tonight thinking that we have done the best that we can for the city of Lewiston. I think we all share that same pride in the city. We want to see the place grow and become that opportunity or land of opportunity that we keep touting. Just keep moving forward, that's all. That's all we can do. Do the best with what we've got. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Further comments from the council? Thank you, councilors. Thank you, school committee, and thank you to all of you. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Agenda item, am I to understand we're at agenda item number 21?
21, yes, sir. Item number 21, resolve, making an appropriation for the special revenue funds for municipal budget year 2024. Requested action to approve the resolve, making an appropriation for the special revenue funds for municipal budget year 2024.
I have a motion, please. Councilor Pease.
Second.
So moved.
Second by Councilor Clement. Discussion. Public comment. Back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are now up to reports and updates from the council. Councilor Scott.
Thank you. So we had a school committee meeting last night. I'll keep this short and sweet because we've been here for a while. And just say that we had several requests for activities, field trips, the, oh my goodness, I forgot what it was called, the after graduation night?
Project graduation.
Project graduation. We had that last night. But I think the biggest thing that we heard last night, and I want to speak to this the most, is the students that came to us. So we had our Skills USA students come. They presented because they're going to nationals. We had, I believe, 82 students that went. 51 students came back with awards from states. And we have 5 students that are going to nationals to compete in medical math, to compete in plumbing, to compete in all these different areas. And of those students, we had, last night we heard from 2, they got full boat scholarships, one for basketball at Vermont College and one at Bowdoin College, who is also a member of these gentlemen is a member of our Youth Advisory Council. And then after that presentation, we were all pretty proud because it was pretty significant to see that. And the superintendent slightly embarrassed those students to bring them up in front of us, but I thought that that was good because I thought that they deserved to have that shine on them. We also had a presentation from our ROTC group, our junior ROTC group, and our cadet colonel that came up and told us about their trip to Washington, D.C. And when they first presented to us, they were going to Washington, D.C. I was very excited because at that age, I had also gone to Washington, D.C. And it's such a game changer when you're young and you get to see your capital and you see what goes on. And the student, the way he presented last night, the joy that they had, the talking about the pride in our country that they had going there and seeing the national monuments and seeing the war memorials to the people that sacrificed for our country. It was really amazing to hear that from a 17-year-old student, to hear that pride in our country. And then we found out that that student also received a full boat scholarship from the Navy to the Maine Maritime Academy. And so tonight I would just like to recognize that we have some incredible, incredible students in our system, and I don't think that we get to hear that enough and really boast about the great accomplishments that our students are having. So that's my report tonight. Congratulations to our students.
Thank you. And I think I do know the cadet colonel, and I think we have a proud parent in the audience this evening.
Oh, you do?
So
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations to you and Pear. Further reports and updates.
Have ours already, we've approved it.
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
Excellent point, thank you. We are now up to new business. Do we have any? Counselor Scott?
One more thing, and this is
Yes.
about our students, but this is about the Youth Advisory Council. I just want to remind everybody that on May 11th, that the Lewiston Advisory Council will be having their Let Diversity Shine event at LA Arts. That's from 6 to 8 on Lisbon Street, and I encourage everybody to go.
Any other new business? I believe we're ready to adjourn, Madam Clerk.
Yes, would you like a vote, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we have Counselor LaChapelle, seconded by Counselor Pease.
Excellent. Counselor from Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Counselor. One more. Counselor.